Okay, guys, before I start, I want to first make sure you have a look at the class chat at the bottom of the home screen or the home page. If you set up in your settings there at the bottom, you can set up notifications so that it makes an audible noise or a beep or a ring or something like that when someone enters the chat or when someone adds a comment to the chat. So if you have the course homepage as a separate window, that's a good way to kind of continue the dialogue if you do wish to have a class discussion over the course chat. I've only got 2 students in the classroom tonight, so those of you that did want to have more discussion during class, that's the best way to do it. So anyway, we've got a pretty short lesson tonight on globalization, and then your activities are about the effects of globalization on Canadian businesses and internationally. Also, I've posted 4 activities in Unit 2. I've had a few questions about what's due tonight. Nothing is due tonight. So up to tonight, all that's been due is all Unit 1 material. So that's up to activity 7, I believe, in Unit 1. The Unit 2 stuff that I've posted, it's now activities 1 through 4 are not due until the first class back. So the Monday, March 21st. And that'll be at 10 p.m. again. It's when that'll be due. So hopefully I see most of you or a lot of you on that Monday. But for the most part, you get to enjoy your break. And like I said, nothing's due tonight. Just if you aren't finished with Unit 1 yet, I hope to see all of that turned in by the end of the night so that I can have marks, updated marks for Unit 1 for everybody on that Monday as well. Okay, so I'm going to get this started here. Share the screen. Okay, here we go. Guys over there, do you have the video showing or no?
Yeah.
Is it playing right now? Okay. Okay, so globalization. What is globalization? Most of this is review already. These first few slides I've already shown. But the definition given by the Government of Canada is that it's the increased mobility of goods, services, labor, technology, and capital throughout the world. Although globalization is not a new development, its pace has increased with the advent of new technologies, especially in the area of telecommunications. So, sorry, I lost myself here. So essentially just notice that the Government of Canada's definition emphasizes that it's very much about business and trade. So it illustrates that globalization is a key factor in the growth of international business. We went through this already as well. What's a dispute with globalization? A lot of pros and cons to globalization, things people can argue about. So overseas operations used to be thought of as appendages of subsidiaries to help increase sales, but now they're more seen as part of a network for accessing knowledge and human capital around the world. So note the emphasis on international business as an integrated part of commercial activity, so not just an add-on. Essentially, international business is necessary for companies to compete. So we're going to talk a lot about multinational companies, global companies, and international companies, or multinational enterprises. Most people see these words as synonymous with one another, but there are some subtle differences. So a multinational company is an enterprise that conducts business in several different countries. So multinational corporations have many dimensions, and they can be viewed from many perspectives. So ownership, management, strategy, structural, and the different levels of international involvement can range in complexity and scope. So international activities can be very simple or much more complex. So it could be as simple as just import, export, and then as complex as foreign production, licensing, investment in other foreign markets. Yeah, like 25% of the world's total revenues actually come from international sources. Okay, so multinational versus international. So here's a few differences. Multinational companies have investments and operations in more than one country. So this means they may have labor operations, they may be taking or making use of resources in other foreign countries. What did I mark them as a way? No. I did? Don't be there. Then international companies exist in a single country but do business in foreign markets. So essentially international companies are more just your import-export, but they have their head office or headquarters in a single country and do business outside of the country. So they make sales outside the country. Okay, so global companies. Global companies are looking to expand into the international market. They sell the same or modified products to meet local culture. They encourage employees to move from country to country, and foreign nationals become top managers, so people from other countries. And of course, this occurs because of free trade. So international business. International business or international companies have one central location. So one country is seen as home, and top management usually comes from that home country. A good example is Loblaws. Loblaws is part of the Weston Group, so that's your Zayres, Real Canadian Superstore. I think No Frills are all part of Loblaws, and of course just Loblaws stores. So they're based in Canada, and then have some international operations in both the US and United Kingdom. So some benefits and challenges in global countries. Some advantages. Savings in raw materials and labor by moving production facilities to locations where wages are lower. Worldwide access to the most innovative ideas and designs. The ability to market a product to meet worldwide needs and wants. And then job creation in developing nations. Some challenges. It's important to note with global companies, they would be defined as marketing and selling more homogenous products. So not necessarily homogenous products, but their products that they are marketing are more homogenous, so they don't take into account the different cultural differences. So they're marketing the same products all across the globe. So much more, I guess, ethnocentric, and we'll get into that later, what ethnocentrism means, and ethnocentric multinational companies. I'd be a company like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola doesn't change very much from country to country, or the way they market it doesn't, is what I mean to say. Okay, so some challenges. Cost of creating and maintaining a global presence are high. And we've talked about that a little bit, about maintaining global presence or making a company known globally. Some political, economic, commercial, and foreign currency exchange risks. We've spoken about those when we were talking about disadvantages of going global. And then, of course, understanding local culture. We've talked about that a little bit too when we brought up kiss, bow, or shake hands. Okay, just a reminder here that I posted activity 2 on Desire to Learn. I posted that on Monday night. The content section there isn't too self-explanatory, but it goes more into multinational enterprises or multinational companies. It'll help you identify some of the main characteristics. So I think you have to click on each different characteristic to read a little more about how to identify multinational enterprises. And in your text and on the website there, you might see multinational companies referred to as multinational enterprises or MNEs. MNEs, MNCs, multinational enterprises or multinational companies. Okay, so globalization. Over the past few decades, there's been a growing trend towards families of interrelated and cooperating companies operating throughout the world. So as a company becomes more international, borders and nationality become less important. So an example of a multinational collaboration is the Airbus. I've got a slide later on the Airbus. The production of the Airbus commercial airliner spans several countries in Europe and draws upon a global network of suppliers. So I'll get back to that. Okay, so once again, globalization refers to the growth and spread of interactive international economies and businesses around the world. Okay, I had a short video here.
Like radio, TV,
it's about 8
phones,
minutes long.
Or internet.
I don't know how this is going to come across in the live stream.
The world is becoming more and more interconnected. Never before in human history has there existed such an intense relationship between international trade, communication, and politics. The term globalization is all around us, sometimes as an opportunity, sometimes as a new challenge. But what exactly does globalization mean, and what are its ramifications? Even though the term globalization is frequently used, it is not easy to define. One thing is clear. In today's world, economic, environmental, social, and political issues and problems are no longer limited to the national level because the world has become so interdependent in politics.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to stop the video there. And I'll post the video or a link to the video on YouTube so that you can watch that on your own. It's a good video though. It's 8 minutes long. Has some pretty good explanation of what globalization means, what free trade means, what's leading to globalization, and what it means for us. Okay, so multinational companies. Multinational company or enterprise is a business enterprise that conducts business in several countries. They account for more than 70% of the world's trade. So the global influence is very far-reaching, and it's displayed by their dominance in some of the bigger industries like oil and gasoline, hydroelectric, and nuclear plants, minerals, construction of different transportation crafts like the Airbus, lumber, and agriculture. So they're mainly based in the Northern Hemisphere and operate on multinational agreements that are established among countries to regulate international trade. So just another comment about international marketplace when we're talking about these large multinational and global companies, sorry. It's a very unpredictable place to do business, and it's different from the familiar comfort of domestic markets and customers. It's a much more high stakes business, and like the question is never if something's going to go wrong, but when. So caution and planning for multinational enterprises can help minimize those global problems. A lot of international corporate structure and how they choose to do business are ways to kind of counteract any of those global issues. Okay, so now we'll talk about quickly just at this Airbus example. Many of you have probably heard of Airbus. Their production spans several countries in Europe and draws upon a global network of suppliers. They were established in 1970 and based out of Toulouse, France. So now, that in 1970s when they were established, now companies that build Airbuses can be found in Britain, France, Germany, Spain, Belgium, and then they have different training and support centers in China, Japan, and North America. So this is an example where it's not just sales being done outside of France where they're based, but there's many different aspects or parts of the company, the company's operations in many different countries. So multinational companies operate globally in one of three ways. So these are three different ways that multinational companies operate. Okay, so this is a good place to get some notes down, or when I post this presentation, this kind of chart here is a good thing to have in your notes. So the three different types are ethnocentric, polycentric, and geocentric types of multinational companies. So ethnocentric treats international businesses the same way as national. The main control of foreign operations is done from a head office at home. So essentially, it's a very self-centered way of doing business. There's like ethnocentrism at its root is sort of a feeling of superiority of any one nationality. When talking about ethnocentric companies, the big decisions are always made from the top. So from the home country or the home head office. And it's sort of looked at, that way of doing business is sort of seen as tunnel vision. Like there's only one way to do things and it's the way we do it here. Then we've got polycentric. With a polycentric multinational, foreign operations are run from hubs in different countries, so they take into consideration cultural differences in business. 3M Corporation is a good example of that because 35,000 of its employees are positioned in countries around the world. Essentially, again, with polycentric, companies that run a polycentric operation are, their beliefs are kind of, it's hard to understand foreigners or different cultures. So it's best to leave the national or geographic divisions to make decisions and run those different areas. And then we've got geocentric multinational companies. Geocentric is much more uncommon. So a geocentric multinational strives for total integration of global operations, and they take the multinational approach. And by multinational here, I mean like world-oriented approach. They seek to hire employees based on furthering the vision of the company as a whole. Really large companies are they're like big ships. Like it takes a long time to maneuver or change course when things come up. So it takes longer for them to analyze information and alternatives when things come up in the market. So it's hard for them to maneuver around barriers and obstacles. So that gives smaller, more responsive companies an advantage when they decide to go global or when they go international and conduct business in the international marketplace. Because when you combine the benefits of technology, the smaller companies can be really competitive with the larger ones in the multinational marketplace. Okay, so that's about it for tonight. So to work, I'd like you to read pages 150 to 153. Talks about multinationals and global companies and a little bit about globalization. And then again, have a look at the activities posted and desire to learn Unit 2. So Unit 2, activities 1 through 4, they're all posted and they're due in that first class back after break. Okay, so tonight, if you're not finished everything, please do your best to get everything in from Unit 1. And that's about it. So if I don't see you, enjoy your break, and I hope to see everybody on the Monday when we return. Okay, have a good night.